Hello and welcome back to Macro Day, and today we're talking about a very special macro that acts as a crucial preprocessor for your menu applications. It's the key to making smart decisions before you maybe redirect your users. So today we are going to dive into the sc_script_name macro. So let's dive in, shall we? So hello and welcome back to another macro day here on Scriptcase by Jamie. And today we are checking out the sc_script_name macro. And of course, it's another one of those beautiful macros that does not want to be displayed here. So we do have that here, sc_script_name. So let me type that out for you. So we have sc_script_name, and then we of course have our brackets there, and then we close that up. Now, this macro has a very specific purpose, and its main purpose is to give you access to the name of the application that was just selected from your menu. So this is available within the menu's onExecute event, which is the perfect place to run logic after a user clicks a menu item, but before the redirection happens, which is very important to note. So this lets you perform actions such as maybe cleaning up variables, checking user permissions, or even setting context-specific goals, which are all maybe based on which applications the user is about to access. So this macro has a very basic scope, and the reason why it doesn't show here is because just like all the other macros, it is not actually used like this. We need to use this within an if statement, and we also have curly brackets around this one as well. So that is pretty important to note. So here I would then go if, for instance, and then let's close here our brackets up. So then we have our sc if open bracket. Let's then add here if that then equals here. If that then equals here, my app, for instance, or whatever it is your application is called, let's close that up. And then just like that, we can then run some logic in here, or whatever it is that you want. And then you can go off and, well, apply whatever you need depending on what the user has selected. So let's check this out actually within another application, shall we? And we have here the menu from last week and previous weeks actually, where we have dynamically generated our own little menu. So here, for instance, I can say if, for instance, we are accessing here the menu code 1, item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, item 20, item 90. Now these are all what we have here within the menu. So here we have menu encode, comparisons, alternate menu, alternative menu. And we have all the names applied here, of course. So we can see that menu encode, available grids, comparisons, alternative menu, and so forth. And with that, we can then go ahead maybe at the bottom here. So let's come in here. In fact, let's maybe get the event correct for this, because we don't actually use it within this event. We use it within the onExecute. So if I save that, we have then our menu application saved. And then here, I could then place then our previous code that we had. So let's add our basics in here. And then we have here our sc_script_name. And if that equals whatever it is we have in here, then maybe we would want to reset sc_reset and global. And then we can reset some global values maybe depending on what has been selected basically. And we can reset multiple globals just by actually adding them in here. I'll just add glob in that one, and then we have then that pretty much set up. Now we have then our names here to apply, and that is pretty important. So if I come here to our on application init, we have here menu encode, and then I can place that here within the on execute, and then add that in here if script name equals menu encode. And then I could run that application, and that should then reset then the global values depending on what I select here. So checking here the menu encode, which is actually a parent, so that would really be no good. I would have to actually select a menu item which is functional. So I'll choose here the IE tech, which we added previously, and then that could then be added in here. And then I could run that again. And then if I click then here the IE tech, that would then basically reset the global values. Now this would be a classical, say, use case for the SC script name, and we could explore some more advanced scenarios. And of course this would essentially be an advanced scenario here with the global variables. And I should maybe note that there is a common issue in having global variables from previous applications, and that's where you would maybe want to use this so that those other global variables do not interfere with these new global variables. And it's very important that we then apply that within the correct event for starters, and that is again the on execute. Now what we need then is actually here the application name. So I'll choose here the grid comparison, and then we can place that in there. And then if I run that, clicking then on the grid comparison or loading this application will then reset those global values. I see I have no connection there at the moment, so I actually have the database switched off at the moment. But that's basically how this would then be used. So it's important to use then the application that you are calling, not the application name or any of the other parameters that we have here. We want the application which we are calling. So note that you may not be able to use this when you then add a full URL in there. So that may actually give you some issues. That is worth testing actually. So another option for this would maybe even to check if the user role, so for instance, is correct. So here if I access an admin app, then in here, I could then say, well, if, for instance, the user role, so let's type this all out here. Now, if here, the global user role again, and if that doesn't equal admin, so let's remove that. And then if that doesn't equal admin, then we will then go ahead and maybe redirect the user to somewhere else. So we can check that then by using this application or adding some extra security in there. So that when these applications are accessed within the menu, then you can also again check to make sure that your definitions or your requirements, they match to what they should be. In this case, the user role. So if it's not admin, then here we would, for instance, redirect the user to maybe the login page, or maybe the app access denied that we have here. We don't have that, but that's something we could then create, and then we can just redirect the user there. Now, in this case, it is important to also add then the SC exit in there to ensure that no further processing happens, and then we redirect them, and then we would stop any other processing here from the application. Now, this is in fact a very powerful use case. So even if you're not, even if for non-admins, basically you can check whether they are or not, and then redirect them and so forth. There are other options that we could also apply this for. So we could use a switch instead of an if statement, and then depending on the application they're adding, maybe we would want to add a global variable. So let's actually do that one. Let's actually create here a switch. And we have then here our brackets, and then we have here first of all our case, and we have with our case, we have then maybe our global variables defined. So here I would then say glob underscore user or whatever it is, or whatever your global variable is, and I'll say here sales, for instance. So if it's sales, then of course need to add our break in here, and in fact let's go and add a few more. So I'll just copy this one actually, so we can just make it a little quicker, and there we go. So let's clean that up. Break, 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 and user Okay, and there we have 3 cases. So here we can say if glob equals admin, and here if it just glob, for instance, or whatever you have. And then we can say here for our basic one here at the bottom here, let's go add profit, maybe sales, and revenue goes there nicely. Now, if these global variables equal these options, then of course that would be applied. Now, in our case, we could then add here, say here the grid sales. So when they add the grid sales reports, let's add reports in there. And then here, for instance, when they access the grid, say revenue report, like so. And then for the profit, grid underscore profit, or whatever you have that called. And in those cases, then we can apply some extra global variables depending on our SC script underscore name that has been selected or used within our menu application. So basically here, we're checking which report the user clicked on. Based on the name they selected, or should I say the menu name or menu item, we set a different global variable. It's pretty awesome, right? So this report application can then, of course, be used with global variables to run maybe alternative queries that you have within those applications that maybe are passed via the URL or however you need. So while the SC underscore script underscore name might be a small, tiny little macro, and it doesn't want to be displayed in our other applications there, it is in fact the key to building dynamic, secure, as well as highly intelligent navigation menus within Scriptcase. It is the little secret macro that maybe nobody tells you about because it gives you the power to make super smart decisions at the precise moment a user clicks on the menu item, which is very powerful, right? So, okay, if you found this video helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe for more macro day goodness, and let me know in the comments how you are using the SC script name to perfect your menus. And I'll be seeing you next Friday right here on Scriptcase by Jamie for another macro day. Thank you very much for watching.